Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Moms of all ages, today's show will make you laugh, cry, shake your head, and wonder how you made it through. Our special guest is author Ylonda Gault Caviness. She wrote the book Child Please, a touching memoir of her motherhood journey, where she learns that her modern-day mothering techniques just don't hold a candle to her mama's old-school parenting. It's all about trusting your instincts when it comes to being a mother, and we'll talk about it next on Another View, right after this news from NPR.
Discussing today's topics from an African American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. It is so good to be back with you after a 2-week break. I had a great vacation, but I did miss you, and I am really happy to be back. My special thanks to my producer, Lisa Godley, and my audio engineer, Victor Bowen, for holding down the fort while I was gone and keeping you company on the air. Ylonda Gault Caviness is the author of Child Please, and this is what some of her peers say about her book. Mothers of every color will laugh out loud and relate to Ylonda Gault Caviness's raw voice. Hilarious, moving, and blisteringly honest. You'll end the book feeling less alone than when you started. And got your hands full raising children? Put yourself on timeout and read this insightful, often hilarious book. Please welcome to Another View, by phone from New York, Ylonda Gault Caviness. Hi, Ylonda. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. Wow, that intro makes me sound like something really special.
You are something really special. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I hope I can live up to that.
You certainly will. And, we are so excited because, you were scheduled to be with us back in June, and you so graciously, changed the schedule after that horrible situation in South Carolina.
Yes.
So we do want to thank you for that.
We all needed to just sit and pray after that.
Yes,
so,
yes, we did. Yeah. Yes, we did, definitely. So I sent out I want to tell you, I sent out a promotional email yesterday, as we do with our guests, to our listeners so that they will know who's coming up. And I got an immediate response back from one of our regulars, a guy by the name of Steve Corneliuson. And he wrote back and he said, "Thanks. I wonder if the guest is related to Charlene Hunter Gault. Anyway, she
I
sounds
get that all
interesting."
the time.
So
I get that all the time.
Okay, so answer the question for him then.
I am not related to her, though I would like to be. She's brilliant, and I'm a huge fan.
Okay, then there you go, Steve. There's the answer to that question. So I must tell you, Ylonda, I read your book while I was waiting in jury duty.
Oh, did you
And
really?
people were looking at me because there were parts where I literally laughed out loud. And so, I was so engrossed in the book, and people were looking at me like, okay.
Get all kinds here in this jury pool.
Exactly.
That's funny.
It was hilarious, but so true in so many different ways. So I'm going to bring the audience into this. Let's talk about, first of all, your mom first. Let's set the stage in terms of when we talk about old school parenting. Set the stage for us and tell us what type of mom you had.
Okay, well, I had the type of mom who suffered no foolishness. My mom's point of view was basically get up, do it, work hard, and do it the next time. Doesn't matter how you're feeling about it. Doesn't matter how you think it's going to be. Do it. Do the work. Do the work. Do the work. She had us scrubbing all the time. I mean, I talk about it in the book, but we had to scrub our garage floor. Why, I don't know. We had to on the regular now too. This is not just once in a while. I mean, we had chores. I mean, up the wazoo. You wouldn't believe. I mean, scrubbing grout with toothbrushes. Cleanliness was indeed next to godliness in my mother's eyes. And there were two things that from her children she definitely would not take, and that was lying. Mm-hmm. And that was and I'm sorry if I offend anybody right now, but that was any out of wedlock children. That was just, you just couldn't do it. You just couldn't do it. She would tell you all the time, I raised my kids, I'm not raising anymore. And we had a very, 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 very strict upbringing, but an upbringing that was not unlike any other in my neighborhood. Very quick to pull out the belt, or if she didn't have a belt, whatever was close by.
And, we chuckle, and I know a lot of people have a real strong opinion about what is now known as corporal punishment.
Right.
But in the African-American household and in the African-American community, spanking is something that is still carried on in some families, and that is something that our culture believes in.
It's true.
And so so when we chuckle, we're not necessarily condoning, but that is something that is a part of our community.
People don't always realize that too. To be honest with you, I was on a white station and a station with mostly white listeners, and when I said, because this is true, seriously, we didn't get spanked. To be honest with you, Bart, we got whooped. We was not. Spanking to me is, tap the behind a little bit. Right. We got whooped. And people asked me, I tell you, like a dozen questions. How bad were the beatings? How were you affected? And honestly, I don't know that I was scarred. I mean, I don't have anything to compare it to. I don't know what I would be without the whooping. But I didn't feel that way. I'll be honest though, I don't whoop my kids. And I don't whoop them because I don't think it works. I don't not whoop them because, and I'm sure there's validity to all these social science experts, will come out now with what it does to your esteem and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I just didn't think it worked. I would literally gauge how bad my whooping would be, and I'd do what I wanted to anyway. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's just me.
So, and that was the main reason why you decided not to whip your children. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was the main reason. And I also think, though, too, the world is so much more complicated now. I'm really concerned that if I raised my kids only with fear or mostly with fear, that they really wouldn't make it so well because I can't be around them. They've got the world in their pockets with these cell phones. So it's harder. It's harder because I don't think the belt will really do that much. I think that I have to work much harder just to make sure they get my values and to make sure I'm pouring into them all the time so that when they're not with me, so they're not in front of my face, I can't catch them. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That they're going to make the decisions I would have them make.
So, and you bring up a really interesting point then, Ylonda, because in our day, fear was used as a protective mechanism also in terms of a way to teach our parents used to teach us how to deal in society, how to conduct ourselves in society so that we could make it. And we have to teach our children some of those same lessons, but not necessarily in the same way.
Exactly. That's the challenge. And I've never even really articulated it just like that, but you're right. It's difficult because the way we were brought up, it worked for that time. I really do believe it worked. If you look around, right? Mm-hmm. It created leaders. It created some thought, provoking people, and all that's well and good. And I think we struggle. I think we really struggle now to figure out the way to do that in this new society. And I think one of the reasons I wrote the book actually was because I struggle. I wrote parenting stories and edited parenting stories for Essence Magazine and Parenting and read book, and I read what the experts say, and I try to parse it out to our readers. And some of it, as my mother would say, didn't make a bit of sense, But it's what they were telling us to do, time out, this or that. And I realized after a while, and my mother is somewhere cheering, because I realized after a while, my mother's fundamental way was best. That doesn't mean I can copy everything she did, but fundamentally, her way of, listen, I'm the captain, you're the crew, because I said so. Mm-hmm. A lot of that is really what we're missing.
in terms of
A
raising
lot
our
of that.
children now.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because kids need boundaries. Kids need boundaries. And I think that the way, if you would listen to all the experts now, they have almost none. They have almost none. They come up in any restaurant they want to come up in, maybe for various reasons. Maybe their parents can't get sitters, or maybe their parents just believe they should be in five-star restaurants. I don't know. They bop into conversations all the time that they have no business in, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't say Miss Yolanda or Miss Barbara anymore.
That's very true.
Right?
That's right. And that would never happen when we were growing up.
It would never happen. And, a part of us, I think a part of us in this modern parenting world, we get, it's no big deal. We just... But I just think it just sets a certain kind of pace that's dangerous, because it says you, grown person, and me, pre-adolescent, we're about the same. I mean, you have car keys and credit cards, but other than that, me and you, we right here,
Right. And we're not. And I wonder then, Ylonda, do you think that as they then grow older, does this then play into the lack of civility that we see a lot more now, I think, than we have seen in the recent past,
I think it does. I'm going to tell you quite honestly. I dropped my son off at camp the other day. I saw a little boy he's friendly with, and I said, "Hello, Julian." And he said, "Hey."
Oh.
No, I really don't think. It is funny because, I'm going to be honest, and you probably saw this through the book. I'm a fan of hip hop, and you can catch me. I can spit some Drake, and I'll just tell you, I got blessings on blessings on blessings.
I love that.
So I think I'm kind of cool, for my age. But that was just like, whoa.
Yeah,
it really did. It took me back. You are 8 years old, dude.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hey, and his mother, whom I really respect, I do. She didn't say anything.
Because there are some parents who absolutely don't see anything wrong with that, and
right.
that's a major struggle. I think that you see where you have a set of parents who still maintain that there is a level of respect that children should have for adults in terms of the way that they address adults, the way that they behave, and that they act around adults, and others who are much more lenient.
Yeah. I just think there's a slippery slope. Yeah. There's a slippery slope when you start saying, "Hey," to people 5 times your age, and you start listening into conversations. My mother would smack us if we were, as she used to say, looking down her mouth.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, if I'm talking, you should not only not say anything, you really shouldn't even be near me.
Right. You were at that adage of children should be seen and not heard.
Yeah. I am having a grown folks conversation.
Exactly.
And, and with my mom, and I think moms of her generation, it could happen whenever, wherever, and when it did, you just acted accordingly. They didn't have to let me find some me time or, my mother would say it's all me time.
Yeah, it really is. The modern mothering really switched to all the focus on the child, where mothers of our mothers, it was all about them, and the child was the secondary one. That's really interesting. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. We're talking about modern parenting versus old school parenting. Give us a call and let us know your thoughts. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So, Ylonda, you're a journalist, and you were writing, parenting articles and so forth. So when you got pregnant, you were thinking, you and your husband were together, you were thinking about being a mom. Did you think, you did think that you were going to raise your child exactly like Dr. Spock told you?
Yes.
And others with your list, and you had your specific times that your first child had to go to bed and that they had to be fed. And
I was regulation mom. I really was.
Talk to us a little bit about how that was, and then your mom came to visit.
My mother, like a lot of black women, has no filter. Let me just say that. Someone asked me once, "What do you think your mom, thought of your parents?" If I didn't have to think, I didn't have to guess, she would let me know. She would say to me, quite frankly, "Are you going crazy or coming back?" when I would give her my little, because I had a little, I had this little, I'm embarrassed now, but I had this I had it at my PC. I had this sort of itinerary, see. So the baby, let's say the baby woke up at 7:30. So I thought from 7:30 to 8, and I wrote it out just like that, 7:30 to 8. There could be a bath. I would even pencil in free play.
Free play. Oh, wow.
Free play.
As if that infant knew what that meant.
I just wanted anyone who, might need to step in at any moment to understand that this is the way I do it. And, of course, if this is the way I do it, this is the way you need to do it, because this is the way it is to be done. Okay? So, needless to say, my mother cursed me out when I first gave her that list. And I heard all about how many kids she's raised, and I don't tell her, and I won't tell her this, and I won't tell her that. And it's funny because, that generation was always very big on education. I mean, it was central to everything. I think now it's assumed that kids will finish high school and that they may go on to, it was everything, because obviously they grew up in the Jim Crow South and things were so unfair, and you just had to get an education. So my mother would tell me that I had become an educated fool. Because I was doing everything to the letter of the law. And, they would tell you, I don't know if you know this, but they tell you now, when you bring your baby home, there's a long period, I want to say like 2 to 3 weeks, where they tell you should not bathe the baby. You should sort of like sponge bath the baby. I
Really?
know, right?
Really?
Yeah, they do. They do. They tell us that as Americans we're obsessed with cleanliness and and the baby's not really that dirty. And, this is the mother who, cleans the grout, like once a week. So she's like, oh no, you're going to put that baby in. So that baby's getting a bath. Because the baby has to smell good. And I have to say, I relented on that because I could tell that the baby actually enjoyed water, and it kind of brought them, brought a little baby some peace.
Oh my goodness! That little Gerber baby commercial where the little baby is being bathed in the with the real cute little baby that has that commercial now. Oh my goodness, that's like prime time.
I know.
I want to read this from the book because this is just so indicative of the type of writing that you do in this book. This is from chapter 2. Ain't it funky now? Mama didn't like what I fed the baby. Give that child a bottle and call it a day. Mama didn't like when I fed the baby. It's every 4 hours, not every whenever. She didn't like doctor recommended advice. I guess common sense isn't common at all. She said I didn't swaddle the baby right. Wrap, tuck, fold. Simple. I held the baby wrong too. My grip was supposed to be tight. I can just look at that poor child and tell she's uncomfortable. So there was definitely a generational thing going on there.
Definitely. And and part of my struggle, to be quite honest, emotionally, was that, I knew my mom, obviously, I'd grown up with her, and I don't know what it was, but something about having that baby, her first grand, made me think that we were going to have this real tender time that we actually have never had. I mean, I know she loves me, but that's just not what we do. We don't sit around talking about how much we love one another. But I really thought this was going to be a very special time. And, I mean, it was in some ways. I think I also didn't realize that postpartum depression can be real. And I don't know that I had it, but I know I had something. And I also know that having the kind of mother I had convinced me that since I'm a black woman, well, there ain't no way I'm depressed because we don't have time for that. We're too busy. We're just too black for that. We got to keep going. My mom would say, put one foot in front of the other and just keep it moving. And it was on so many levels. I think having that first one especially, it was on so many levels like a life-altering experience because I'm having this extraordinary experience with this creature, this newborn, and I'm also having this extraordinary experience with my mom, whose own past starts to really reveal itself. I'd always known that she, grew up without a mom. Her mom died when she was a toddler. But I never really thought of the things, and I think most of us are this way, we don't really think of the things that make the quintessential, stereotypical strong black woman so strong, right? We don't think of the hurt that happens and that kind of can sometimes harden her. So I in the book deal with that too, because it really had never been brought to fore until these little creatures came into our lives, you know?
And then she started opening up more.
Yes.
And talking about
little,
that. Yeah.
I mean,
little
for,
ways.
for her. I mean, let's not get, okay. We
it
didn't
still
get
was
over
not a
her.
kumbaya moment. I
No,
got you.
no,
I
no,
got
no,
you.
no, no.
Let's go to the phone. Sandra joins us from Newport News. Hi, Sandra. You're on the air.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi there. Very quickly, I just wanted to share that my mom, she was raised in the country down in Georgia. We're originally from Georgia. And I will tell you that the old school style of raising children really do work, and it's not out of style or anything like that. And the reason why I say that is my mom, just by her example, of course, I didn't enjoy it when I was growing up and I was under her, her structured environment like that. But I will tell you, my husband and I, we have one daughter, and with my mom and I being on the same page, that child has been on the straight and narrow. I mean, she is just a phenomenal kid in school. She'll be a senior at CNU University. She's over in Korea now. She won a scholarship to teach English at Konkuk University over there in Seoul, Korea. So she's full speed ahead, and we're on her like white on rice all the time.
Fantastic.
And she FaceTime us to give us updates. She gives us status updates. She knows that she's being held accountable even when she's away. So it all started when she was small. So I think the old school hands-on respect, of elders and, just genuine respect for all your peers and wanting to be a really good person and add to this world and not take away in a negative fashion. It really worked, and it pays homage to my mom. I didn't appreciate it when I was growing up. She told me she didn't appreciate it when she was little, but now we see the results, and my mom sees the results in me. So it does work.
Fantastic.
It will be resisted, but it will work.
Thank you, Sandra, so much for that call.
What a blessing. Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm glad you shared that. I just think that you probably know how blessed you are because you got this great daughter and this great mom. What happens, I think, to a lot of us, though, is that we move away because of career, because of, many things. We move away, and now, we're fractured as a community, and, we don't have those elders nearby. My kids see their grandparents on both sides, a few times a year, and it's great, but it's not like, I know what you mean, because my grandfather actually lived with us. So that also, I think, is a huge role.
It's very interesting because in my house, my daughter and granddaughter live with my mother. So my granddaughter gets a chance to live with her great-grandmother. And I think that makes a huge difference in terms of the way and the things that she says. So you can see some of her mannerisms and so forth. And it's a beautiful thing. It definitely is.
Intergenerational, that's right.
Intergenerational, absolutely. David joins us from Gloucester. Hi, David. You're on the air. David, you're on the air.
Can I comment real quick?
Sure.
I was raised old school, and my dad, by today's standards, would be considered abusive. He spanked me. He did also use his hand. Unfortunately, he occasionally hit me in the face. But I came up. I spent 20 years in the military. Had never been in trouble with law enforcement, and as far as I'm concerned, he raised me right. I mean, like the previous caller said, sometimes it wasn't fun, but I appreciate what he did in the long run to try to keep my head screwed on straight. And it was tough, but it was worth it. Now, I think, unfortunately, a lot of people say spanking, all that kind of stuff affects you psychologically. I don't believe that because I don't feel like I'm psychologically harmed. Okay. I'll take your comments off there.
All right.
Have a good day.
Thank you, David, for the call. We really appreciate that. I know that subject brings many different opinions.
It sure does.
And people feel very strongly about it. I want to take one other call. Ade, I believe, from Virginia Beach. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes, correct. It is Ade.
Ade. Okay. How are you?
Yes. I'm great. I'm enjoying the conversation. I appreciate you all having this conversation today. I am in my early 30s. I have 3 children, 2 young girls and a son. And I I agree with being strict with your children. I agree with the concept of speak when you're being spoken to and have respect for your elders and all those other things. But I disagree with using violence as a way to keep our children in line, especially for young black children. Because if we consider how violence has been used to keep us as a people in line since slavery times, what is it that we're teaching our children about conflict resolution when we resort to violence as the first stand? And one of the things that we have to consider is what is the post-traumatic stress that is involved in a young black child? I can't speak for other people, but because of the history that we've had to go through in this country when it comes to if we disobey slave master, we're tied up and whooped with a switch or a whip or whatever it is. And we joke about these things now because we went through them. But consider what it's doing. It's creating an environment of fear in our children. It's creating an environment where they themselves resort to violence as the first way to deal with conflict or to deal with someone who is in disagreement with them. So we should take a look at the history of corporal punishment, because culturally as Africans, we did not use corporal punishment as a way to instill discipline in our children. However, culturally, we did have the concept of a village raises a child, so we understood that all of the other adults and elders in our community will hold our children accountable the same way we do. We don't have that anymore. I agree with that. However, violence as adults, if we're to lead by example and show that we can deal with conflict and deal with disagreements in a civil manner without resorting to violence, because we don't expect to get into fist fights every time we have a disagreement with another adult or to whoop them every time we get in a disagreement with another adult. Why should we do that with our children? We should lead our children to be more understanding of how to be social, of how to deal with conflict resolution, how to deal with disagreement in ways that don't resort to violence. And if the first person that instills fear in a child is their parent through violence, leads our children to do, and I don't need any proof psychologically. I just know if somebody beats me, and the first person that beat me is a family member of mine, a person that I look up to feed me, then what does that relate to long term as to how we deal? And we have young men being murdered, young women being murdered right now in society. Let's consider the violence factor. I agree with everything else. Consider the violence factor.
Got you, Ade. Thank you. Thank you so much for that point of view. We appreciate that call. Do. You know, Ylonda, that also goes to a point that I wanted to bring up. And just before I do, though, let me remind folks that if you're just joining us, we're talking with parenting journalist Ylonda Gault Caviness, author of Child Please, How Mama's Old School Lessons Helped Me Check Myself Before I Wrecked Myself. The number is 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. From a journalist's perspective, as well as a mom's perspective, I want to get your take on this, especially with what Ade just said. When the melee happened in Baltimore, and there was all of the talk about Supermom, Toya Graham, the young mother who was caught on tape, with her son, and she was physically, hitting him to get him to come off the streets and not participate in the riots. What was your take on that in terms of her method of keeping her son out of trouble?
Well, now, this is not popular, but I'm going to be very honest here. And what I want to say is that I don't judge other people's parenting. That's just something I don't do because I'm not in their shoes. And while I agree with a lot of the things that the previous caller brought up, I really do. What I saw when I witnessed what flashed across many of our television screens when Toya Graham got her son, I don't think that we can take that little bite of video and then parse out from there her whole parenting style. To me, I really felt something visceral inside as a mom, as a parent, because to me, what she was doing was pulling her child out of the line of harm. It was the same thing I might do if a toddler wandered into the street and there was an oncoming car. I would snatch that kid. I wouldn't try to make it a teachable moment. I wouldn't try to talk the child away from the street because that car is coming, it's coming fast, and my child's in the line of danger. I believe that's how she was responding, from that fear. And I think that she got really vilified, and she was even made, to me, a caricature of by white and black viewers. And it troubled me most to see black people judge her so harshly because we were watching largely, we're watching from our sofas. And we're watching, the unrest unfold. And we're thinking lots of things. We're feeling very emotional. She is right there in it. The sirens are going. The fires are going. And she knows what just happened to Freddie Gray. She is not trying to have her child hurt. That was my opinion. That was my opinion. And that's what I saw, and that's why I felt for her so strongly, and I felt love for her, to be quite honest, because I don't know what that would even be like. I can't even imagine that I would be in that environment with my kids alone. She has, at this point, no job, and she reacted seeing her son, and she feared for his very life. She feared for his very life. So I think it's really dangerous for us to say, oh, that's how she disciplines him. Oh, that's why he was out there doing something violent. Oh, that's why. And people do it all the time now. People do it all the time now. You're in an airplane and the kid starts crying, and all of a sudden we want to talk about how that parent, is raising their child. Kids are kids. Parents are parents, and I believe, they have the right to do what they think is best, and that's really all we can ask of them is that they do what's best.
Absolutely.
I don't know what that woman has done with her child over the course of his life, and, none of us do. So I don't judge her in that way. I really don't. I really would step away from, any kind of dialogue about what she should have done, what she shouldn't have done. I'm not in that kind of situation, and that's one of those fight or flight kind of things, I think. It's one of those things where I'm sure you just respond to what's going on from your gut. It's not even something that you probably have a chance to think through. If she had to do it over again, maybe she would have done it differently. But, he is a teenager, not a toddler, so, she couldn't have just yanked him with one swoop.
hand.
She was trying to get him out of the danger.
You also talk, and I know I'm jumping around on subjects a little bit, but I'm trying to encompass kind of the overall feel of the many facets of being a mother that you experience, not only just with raising your child, but also the interaction between mothers. Particularly once you moved to the suburbs, because before you were a mother, you were a city girl, right?
Yeah.
So you lived in New York City, and you moved to the suburbs once your family once you started having children, and you were not a big fan of mommy groups.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, I was like, as you said, I was a city girl, before I had kids. I was born and raised, though, in Buffalo, which is, it's nothing like New York City. I mean, it's as far away from New York City as you can imagine. It's really more Midwest in the field. You ever been to Buffalo, Barbara?
I have not, but I have good friends from Buffalo, so I have a sense of what it's like. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very. I think it's built on. It's a Rust Belt kind of mentality. We work hard. There's no pretenses there. Yeah, coming to the suburbs and, first of all, finding so many of my fellow sisters just all brand new, was troubling in and of itself because I am just a very keep it real kind of person. And, when I got here, I felt very alienated because everything seemed about what we had, what we did, where exactly you lived, Center Hall, Colonial, Craftsman, Land Ranger, Land Rover, BM. It's just very superficial. And what troubled me most, though, was the mommy group mentality where you get together with a whole bunch of women who you don't really know all that well. I'm not talking one or two who are your girlfriends. You get together, have a little wine, in my case, lots, but you have a little wine and start talking about motherhood. And, it takes on this, I hate to say it takes on a bit of craziness because, maybe because of the society we live in now, we just elevate this role to almost sainthood. Everyone likes to talk about what they're giving up and what they're sacrificing. People start talking about balance, and they can't, and I can't, and I do. And it just, to me, it sounds like a pity party. And as we mentioned before, the way, our whole society is child-focused, everything becomes about that kid? Oh, my kid threw up last night. Oh, my kid crawled, and they're only 6 months. Oh, my kid's walking, and they're 6 months.
It becomes a competition almost, too,
It does.
between the kids.
It does. It does. And I just thought, what in the world is wrong with these women? Because even though I love my children to death, I don't want to talk about them all the time, you know? They're all very cute. They're all very wonderful. But the reason I look forward to getting together with other grown-ups is to not be on as a mom, you know? And I found that on a deeper level, that obsession with everything your kid is doing and everything your kid might be experiencing is really like living through them, you know? And I found, and I'm not trying to offend anybody here, but if I do, I'm sorry. I find that the women who talk the most about their kids sometimes have the least going on within themselves. And I don't mean just career or financial. I just mean spiritually, mentally, emotionally, you know, because I feel that if something outside yourself, and I'm sorry, I know you had the child, but, you know, God's only letting you borrow that kid for a while. That kid's really his. So if you're going to take this creature and make it your world, sums up with that.
Yeah.
Sums up with that.
So you lose. These are people who are completely losing themselves in their children. Let me read a little bit of what you talk about. There are two instances that stuck out for me in the book. One was when you ran into a friend and you were talking about how you had reconnected with this one mother who was a friend of yours, and the subject of kids and sleep came up, and you told your friend that you had let your baby work it out when he cried in the middle of the night. And you say, girlfriend looked me dead in the eye and said, aren't you worried you'll create abandonment issues? I thought she was kidding. So I burst out laughing. Quickly, I realized she could be serious. And through nervous giggles, I asked incredulously, you think a 2-minute crying jag is going to scar my kid? And she responded as though my actions were worthy of a child and family services intervention. I'm just such a mom. I couldn't imagine making my baby cry. That was one. and then the other was when you bought yourself, as you say, a brand new pair of pink skinny jeans. Colored denim was just coming out, and a tank top. And you were feeling pretty good because you had splurged on yourself. And you told another mother that you had splurged on yourself, and because she had complimented you on the outfit. And she said, and her quote was, "Oh, I never buy nice things for myself now that I'm a mom." And I mean, those are two examples that just jumped out at me in terms of, you know, this whole idea of you can't do anything for yourself. It's all about the child. And people who lose themselves in motherhood I agree with you. It's a little scary. It's
like self-sacrifice is the new black, right? It's like, oh, I just did this, and oh, I just can't. And it's a shame, really. It's a shame. But I do have to admit that I can see how it could happen. I really can. I think as women, we're raised to submit, you know, our own wills and our own desires, and we're raised to think of others first. I just think you have to keep it all in check. And that's when, to be honest with you, that's when a lot of times I would think about Mama when I was growing up, because even though she was on us like, you know, a cheap suit, she always kept herself fly. And she laughs when I say that. And I'm not saying she always looked, you know, like she was Foxy Brown or whatever. But she paid attention. You know. Her wig was on straight. You know? Her bell bottoms had the polyester shirt and the colors matched, you know, her platform shoes. But she didn't run out of the house with sweatpants and no makeup, like I'm going to admit I have done, you know. She was really about her business and about herself. She didn't lose her womanhood. She didn't sacrifice it to motherhood. And I wanted a piece of that, because the thing about my mom that I really also remember so well is that she was happy. She seemed genuinely happy. She was not, and to be honest with you, some of my friends and myself, we didn't seem that happy for all the running around we did, for all the, you know, volunteering in school and taking our kids to this and that, we were frantic most of the time. And, we kind of tried to tell ourselves it was cute, but it's not cute. Oh, how you doing? Girl, I'm so tired. I just got back from soccer. I'm going to piano. Girl, I'm so tired. That's not cute. That's not cute, because who are you, and what, importantly, are you modeling? And I think about that because my two oldest are girls, and it's important for my son too, though. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to be, gender biased in it, but I don't want that life for them. I want them to go and better themselves, and I want them to make use of all the gifts God made them, not just the gifts of, maternal instinct. There are all kinds of gifts that my girls, all us women have, and I believe God wants us to find a way to use them to the fullest. I'm not going to lie; it's difficult when you're a mom and a dad. Mm-hmm. It's difficult to figure out that juggle, but you have to. There's no other choice. You have to do that. You owe it to yourself, and you owe it to the kids.
Now, as you had each child, because you have Chloe, Trinity, and Cole, so each one, did you relax more with each child in terms of the rigidness of being a mom that poor Chloe, because the first child, and I'm a first child, we always get the brunt. Yes. And any second, third, and fourth child will tell you they get easier, or they're not as strict. The first child will always say, "Oh my goodness, who is this parent?" By the time the younger kid comes along, so
see, I'm the youngest, and my brother and sister do often, they often complain. I remember when they went away to college and they came home and they were like, "When's your curfew?" And I thought, curfew? My mother was so tired at that point. She's just like, "Come home." When you finish, come home. And that was enough. And I joke with Chloe, my oldest, sometimes because I can even see myself being more anxious with her, even though now she's older. You still don't quite know if you're doing too much or doing too little. Sometimes I say to her, "Chloe, you're kind of like that first pancake,
Yeah, exactly. The one that one doesn't. That one always you have to work a little bit more.
Yeah, you gotta work. Is it bubbling too much? Right. I catch it in time. If I flip it over, it might get messy. Yeah. I definitely relaxed with each one. Definitely. By the time I got to Cole, my goodness, because there's 6 years difference between my second and third, and I would like to tell people, I really would like people to believe this of me because it makes me sound really smart and virtuous. I'd like to believe that, as I got older, I just understood more about my mom and all that. But the truth be told, by the time I got to the third one, I was really too tired to do all that foolishness I'd been doing. And I realized it really quick and in a hurry that if I was going to try to do what the so-called experts told you to do, I was going to run myself to the ground. And I just had to find a way. I got a lot more firm with the girls, especially. No was really no. I mean, I still kind of believe that they should express themselves, but you know what? Not now.
Mm-hmm. So boundary setting became really important.
It became really important because really I was going to lose my mind. Otherwise. And I also, and this may come with age too, I also, to be quite honest, grew to understand that a lot of the stuff that the books were telling you to do were just really off base. And they didn't really pertain to, I don't think they pertain much to African American people. I mean, brought up the way most of us were brought up. Mm-hmm. And I say that, and people get angry when I say it because it sounds like I'm being racist. I'm really not. It's just that I think as a rule, since most of us had mothers who worked, we always had a sense of pragmatism that some people may not have had. If their mothers were home all the time, they could indulge a little bit more, and maybe their household was run a little differently. I think if your mom worked and her mom worked and you grew up with that, you just knew that when you saw something and it didn't smell right, you just didn't do it. It just you had to make it work for you.
Well, there was an expectation also of taking on, I think, more responsibility perhaps at an earlier age too.
Yes.
That some kids may not have had because they had parents who were able to stay home with them. Where other parents,
if you
other
came
kids
home and you opened the door, you were latchkey. There were certain things you had to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Absolutely.
And then I think the faith aspect of it, to be honest, I thought to myself, with the third one, I've done some things right, but I'm sure I've done plenty of things wrong. And you know what? God's gonna make it all right. It's not all me. You don't really make your kids successful, and I think that's what the so-called experts and media pundits would have you believe. You don't do 10 things to make your kid great or successful or smart. As I said earlier, you're just borrowing them, and you just try to find out what their strengths are and maximize them. But, on a real practical level, it's just like if your kid is huffing and puffing, coming up the soccer field and can't seem to get that hand-eye coordination thing, and you don't have to keep him in sports.
Exactly.
Just because, you've learned that some kind of team sport builds character, or, if they're tone deaf, you don't have to keep doing the piano lessons. You would know if your junior is a prodigy or not. You can let that go, Find out what they really love and work that so that you can be successful as a parent, and that's what success is, right? And they can be successful as kids.
And the last thing, we got about 2 minutes left. I can't believe how fast this hour's gone by.
I know it.
Absolutely.
I'm just getting started.
but we, the one person we have not talked about, and that's Mark, your husband. And but as a mom, it is also important to pay attention to Dad, is it not?
It is. It is very important to pay attention to Dad. And let me just be real clear right now, and I don't want to listen, because I try to keep it real.
I know.
Mark and I are no longer married.
Okay. All right.
You're no longer married. But I'm telling you, Mark is a good dad.
Yeah.
Mark is a good guy. Mm-hmm. And like a lot of couples, Mark and I really did not agree on some parts of child rearing. I mean, basic stuff, yes. But Mark's idea, to this day, it's very recent. So that's a news flash for anybody. Mark wants the kids to be comfortable. He wants them to have a nice life and enjoy things. And more than anything, Mark doesn't want to be the heavy.
Okay.
So that I don't think that's unusual.
Got you.
I don't think that's unusual for men. I think that whole thing of being consistent and driving the rules home, I think they tire of that. I just do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, we got 30 seconds, and I'm just going to have to say goodbye. But you know what?
Okay.
I think that, first of all, let me congratulate you. You're with Working Mothers Magazine now.
Yeah, Working Mother Magazine. I'm a contributor there, and I have other news, okay? I haven't told anybody this on air.
Okay, real quick.
20th Century Fox optioned the TV rights to Child Please.
Oh, fantastic. Well, then we will be looking for it. That is wonderful. It is a wonderful, wonderful book. And we are so excited for you. The book is called Child Please, How Mama's Old School Lessons Helped Me Check Myself Before I Wrecked Myself, by Ylonda Gault Caviness. Ylonda, it's been a blast. Thank you so much.
Oh, I've had the time of my life. Thank you so much. And thank you to your listeners for listening to me.
Absolutely. And we'll be right back.
I'm Melissa Block, host of All Things Considered, and you're listening to Another View on WHRV 89.5.
Young women in the Suffolk and Franklin area are looking at new ways to overcome peer pressure and gain confidence. It's all part of an innovative mentoring program designed to make sure they step into their full potential. Lisa Godley gives us an inside look at how the Ladies of Distinction program is turning things around for young ladies from elementary to high school.
A little over a decade ago, Janelle Riddick decided she wanted to do something to enhance the lives of young people all over the state. So she began her journey of speaking to auditoriums full of teenagers about academics and leadership. Then one day, she had a revelation.
I had a chance to speak with some of the girls after the assembly, and then a light bulb kind of went off that, okay, the masses is great, but you can really probably make a difference if you can touch these girls a couple times a month rather than a couple times a year.
Her first after-school group consisted of about 25 girls.
It was just like, this is it. And so we've grown from one site to now 11 schools, and just kind of continuing the work to really see these girls become healthy and confident and strong.
The Ladies of Distinction started in 2007 with high school students. Since then, it has expanded to include middle school students and most recently 4th and 5th graders, with each session covering a variety of topics.
We have everything from respecting yourself and others, developing self-esteem and celebrating your successes, choosing your friends wisely, because we found that really is an issue that some of them struggle with in terms of being around people who can celebrate their success and encourage them to do better and tell them the truth. And so each session will start with a round table. Everybody has to go around and tell us one new thing about themselves. We have a hands-on activity. I realize they've been sitting down all day, so we try to do something to kind of get their energy going, get them laughing, get them talking. And then we end every session with a question box, and they can put a question about absolutely anything into the box.
Taisha Whitfield says some of her most memorable times has been during the group's annual beach retreat, but Taisha is quick to point out that one of the main things she's gained from the program is confidence.
I asked her, can I host a talent show? And me, I don't talk that much, and I'm quiet. But she was like, yeah, you can do it. And it was like, I think over 50 girls there. And I don't usually talk in front of people because I'm like shy and quiet. But I stepped out of my comfort zone and I hosted the talent show. And they love me.
Like Taisha, Catherine Brown has been with the Ladies of Distinction since 6th grade. She attended the first meeting as an excuse to get out of class, but found something really special in the process.
The things that Miss Janelle said really inspired me to join the program. Because when you're in middle school, you have like a lot of drama with friends and stuff, and you need a mentor to help you with friends and boyfriends and parents. You really need somebody to talk to because you can't just go to anybody about your problems. You have to go to the right person.
Catherine says the program has taught her how to deal with peer pressure. For example, walking away from people who are trying to bring you down.
You have to know when to stop hanging around certain people because after a while, if you keep hanging around them, you're going to end up smoking weed. You're going to end up stealing. You're going to end up breaking into people's houses with them. And it's not going to end you nowhere, but you're going to be in the grave or in the jail cell.
And the success stories of young ladies who've been through the program continue to grow.
We had one young lady who you could tell she just had so much to offer. That same young lady now who used to barely even talk, we actually helped her produce her first musical CD. She's a student now, majoring in music at Howard University.
Among the most noted ladies of distinction is Bill Gates Millennium Scholar, Shalita Hicks.
These young ladies were kind of counted out. They were told that they would not be anything. And particularly Franklin is a very small community. And so a lot of these girls have to just fight unbelievable odds. And so to have a Gates Millennium Scholar to come from that area, to have a young lady who finished her undergrad in 3 years, her master's in 2 years, and is now beginning her doctorate, who was told that she would never do that, it wasn't possible. Those kinds of stories is kind of what fuels me, keeps me going with the program and wanting to continue to expand it.
I set high standards and strive for the best,
knowing that I deserve nothing less.
I am a lady.
I am a lady. I am a lady of distinction.
I am a lady of distinction.
For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
It's a wonderful program, and I actually received an award from them, so I hope that they are continuing to bring wonderful things to these young women. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Another View. Please visit our website, anotherviewradio.org, if you'd like to download the podcast. Next week, it's Another View on Health with Dr. Keith Newby. Our guest is Dr. Scott Cross, and we're talking about colon cancer. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Victor Bowen is our audio engineer, and Autumn Bracey answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Make it a fabulous weekend, everyone. And let's get together again next Friday at noon for Another View.